was just an old house, quiet, affordable, perfect for a fresh start. But behind the peeling wallpaper and creaky floors, something waited, something that spoke, wept, and remembered. This is the true story of a family haunted by more than memories. Welcome to Voices from the Wall, the night the paint cried. It began on a stormy night. Rain tapped against the windows and thunder rolled in the distance. The power flickered, then steadied. The Millers were used to strange sounds by now. Creaks, thuds, the occasional whisper, but that night was different. At exactly 2:47 a.m., a thick metallic smell filled the living room. When they rushed downstairs, what they saw made their hearts freeze. One wall, just one, was covered in deep red streaks, slowly dripping downward. At first, they thought it was paint, but it was too dark, too thick, and it smelled like rust. They tried to clean it, but nothing worked. By morning, it was gone. Not a drop remained. No one outside the family believed them, but they all remembered the horror. Even the family dog refused to enter the room again. From that night on, the house seemed to breathe differently, as if it had finally woken up. Lucy's invisible friend. At first, Lucy's new friend seemed harmless. She was only 6 years old, and imaginary friends are common at that age. She called her friend Annabelle and said she lived in the wall. The parents smiled and played along until Lucy began whispering to the wall for hours, sometimes in the dead of night. She sang lullabies none of them recognized, old-fashioned melodies that had not been heard in decades. Her voice, once soft and childlike, sometimes took on a tone that sounded far older. One night she spoke in full sentences while asleep, describing a room with no door, only darkness. She said Annabelle did not like visitors and that she was still waiting to be freed. The family grew deeply disturbed when Lucy said, "Annabelle said Mommy should not have opened the red door." But there was no red door in the house, or so they thought. The hidden room behind the wall. Lucy's strange descriptions became too specific to ignore. She spoke of a chair with metal arms, a cracked window with no glass, and drawings of crying children. The Millers, desperate for answers, decided to open the wall where Lucy claimed Annabelle lived. With the help of a local contractor, they began tearing into the drywall. What they found behind it chilled them to their bones, a hidden, sealed-off room no one knew existed. It was small, barely 5 feet wide, with no entrance except through the wall they had just broken. Inside were rusted iron hooks, crumbling children's sketches etched directly into the plaster, and a heavy iron chair bolted to the floor. A single porcelain doll sat in the corner, covered in dust but strangely intact. That night, Lucy's drawings changed. She no longer used crayons. She scratched charcoal lines showing screaming faces inside walls, the whispering hour. It always started at the same time, 3:12 a.m. The house, silent all day, would suddenly come alive. The Millers described it as a low hum at first, like air moving behind the walls. Then came the whispers, dozens of them, too many to count. Some were crying, others were angry. A few repeated the same sentence. "She's not gone. She's just waiting." The family began recording these nightly episodes. When they played the audio back, voices were clearer than they had heard with their own ears. "Help us," one said. Another hissed, "You open the door." Audio experts confirmed the sounds came from within the walls but found no source. Even worse, Lucy began whispering back. She seemed drawn to the hallway at 3:12 a.m., her eyes glazed over, speaking in voices that were not her own. The walls were no longer silent. They were speaking, the diary and the floorboards. In a final attempt to understand what was happening, Mr. Miller tore up a section of the old wooden floor beneath the upstairs hallway, directly above the hidden room. That is where he discovered it. A small, mold-stained diary wrapped in a decaying ribbon. The fragile pages were filled with shaky handwriting belonging to a young girl named Annabelle Wilkes. The entries were dated between 1889 and 1892. As he flipped through them, his hands trembled. The girl described daily punishments, from a cruel governess being locked in a thinking chair for hours and hearing other children cry through the walls. The final pages were nearly illegible, smeared with what looked like dried blood. The last line read, "If I die here, may my voice never be alone." Lucy somehow knew what the diary contained before they even read it aloud. She said Annabelle had been waiting for someone to find it. That night, Lucy stopped responding to her name. When her mother called her, she only whispered, "My name is Annabelle now." From that moment, Lucy was no longer just their daughter. Something else had moved in. The cleansing that went wrong. Terrified and out of options, the Millers contacted a local priest and a well-known paranormal investigation team. A spiritual cleansing was arranged, scheduled for the next full moon. Cameras were placed in every room. Candles were lit. Prayers began. For a brief moment, the house felt calm. Too calm. Then, just as the priest began reading a passage of deliverance, the air grew icy. The candles flickered violently. A loud bang echoed from inside the walls. Blood began to seep from the baseboards. One of the investigators was violently thrown against the fireplace, breaking his collarbone. Lucy stood completely still, her eyes rolled back, and she whispered in a deep voice, "You cannot take her from me." The priest tried to continue, but his Bible burst into flames. The team abandoned the ritual, shaken to their core. None of them returned. Lucy was left catatonic, locked in a body that no longer felt like hers. The family knew then, this was no simple haunting, it was a prison, and something ancient had the keys. The final escape, but not the end. The very next morning, the Millers fled the house without packing. They drove for hours until they found the nearest hotel. Lucy was admitted to a psychiatric facility where doctors could find no physical reason for her silence. She stared at walls, whispering lullabies no one could trace. The house was left abandoned, but it did not remain silent. Neighbors began reporting faint cries from the boarded-up windows. A maintenance worker sent to inspect the property fled after hearing a girl laughing from inside the walls. The realtor who tried to sell it again suffered a nervous breakdown. Now no one goes near the place. Trees have started reclaiming the yard. The road leading to the house is slowly being swallowed by nature. Yet those who pass by say that if you roll your windows down, you might hear a faint voice whisper, "She's still here." And if you listen long enough, you might hear your own name spoken back. Because once the wall knows you, it never forgets. The family escaped, but the voices never stopped. Some walls don't just hold history, they hold souls. If you ever hear a whisper in the silence, do not answer. Some things are not meant to be heard, and some houses are not meant to be lived in. The wall is still listening.